the third support seminar. This one is going to be focused on high quality instructional materials and specifically the OER. Hello again, Natalie Elliott, New Schools Manager, and my team, John and Latoya, are also on the call. We're so glad that you're able to join us today. We have a lot of information for you. So before I kick it over to our presenters from the OER team, Elisa Lewis and Elena Ruiz, I'm going to ground our conversation in the expectations of the application materials. So there are just a few things that we want to say out front and clarify as it pertains to our process. Charter schools do have the statutory freedom to design, select, and implement their chosen instructional materials at the local level, at the LEA level. TEA has a variety of resources to guide the planning and development of high-quality instructional materials that follow research-based best practice. So please know that today, this team is going to share a lot of really valuable resources with you and the methodology behind them. But at no point should you walk away from this seminar thinking that you are required as an applicant to select one of these resources. We just find that it's helpful to share what a high quality instructional material looks like and to share the ones that have been vetted through TEA's OER process and provided to you as applicants, to all stakeholders for use. If you choose to select one of them, great. If you choose to use them as sort of a blueprint for how you want to pursue describing your application, how you're going to develop those materials locally, also great. So just to reiterate from what we shared in our mandatory info session, high quality instructional materials are aligned with the TEKS, so the state required curriculum of Texas. They have a comprehensive scope and sequence, and they include lesson level materials with engaging texts and are externally validated or research-based. So remember that even if you're not using a TEA OER product, the expectation is that your products are high quality, and we'll talk about how you indicate that in the application in just a moment. And remember that if you are selecting an OER or any other type of TEA or SBOE approved curriculum, or excuse me, instructional material, it's not enough just to select it and state that you're going to use it in the application. The application should be reflecting your familiarity and your depth of understanding of that material so that it's best fit for the student populations that you propose to serve. So this is probably most helpful to ground in the actual criteria of this section. So if you've already played with the narrative document, then you know that we have a very involved table in which you identify all the high quality instructional materials or the resources that will be used at the local level to develop high quality instructional materials. So these are all the criteria, and you can find them on the resource page. I do want to highlight a couple of things, a couple of takeaways that I think will be most pertinent to our conversation today. Please know that it is really important that there are plans to evaluate continuously the high quality instructional materials for compliance with state law, even if they are an already approved or prepared material. And I believe that the OER team is going to talk a little bit more about the adaptability of certain products and materials. One thing that I would like to call out in particular are these three criteria, the last of which is pretty beefy. So remember, you are identifying high quality instructional materials or plans to adopt materials or create materials that are grade level appropriate, aligned to TEKS, and compliant with state law. You also, a high quality response will provide a clear rationale for the selection of those materials and how they meet the definition of high quality. So again, if you're creating them locally, you can defend how they would be high quality based on your own internal development and vetting process. And here's the beefy one, and it's because it's reflecting a little bit of innovation and current state law and expectations around instructional materials. So As part of this section, you do also need to provide a thorough process for systematic review, adoption, and continuous improvement, as mentioned, including the personnel in your team who would be responsible for that. If you are planning to offer elementary grades, please know that you do need to select a research-based literacy curriculum that meets the requirements of the Science of Teaching reading. There is a commissioner's list of approved phonics instructional materials in the resource page of the application. And there are also, resources for the rule that explains how exactly you can still identify a phonics material that meets all the requirements of the rule. And so here's the other choose your own adventure piece of this criterion. If you are proposing to develop instructional materials locally, describe a realistic and actionable plan for ensuring the materials meet that definition of high quality, again, including the personnel responsible. So we know that there's a lot of moving parts to this. We want to highlight these as some areas to focus on for success in that section of the application. This is a critical piece of your school model. And so I'm going to stop talking and let the experts sort of share some of the TEA products that we have and the process that goes into them. Okay. Please remember, if you have questions throughout this presentation, we are happy to address them as we go to the best of our ability. The presenters will be pausing and answering questions throughout, but please use the Q&A function. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Elisa Lewis. I am the K-12 Science Content Lead in the Open Education Resources Division at TEA. I'll be sharing some background on TEA's open education resources for you today. Joining me is my colleague in OER. Elena, will you come off your mute to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, my name is Elena Reese. I'm the bilingual elementary content lead in the Open Education Resources Division at TEA. So we'll be giving you a more detailed look at the RLA OER product and demonstrating how to access the website for your review.
We're really excited that you tuned in today to learn more about Texas's open education resources and how charter school applicant teams can review them to determine if they are an HQIM fit for your proposed model. There'll be 2 question and answer segments, one in the middle and one at the end. So please, as Natalie said, use that Q&A function to record questions, and we'll be happy to answer those as we go. So let's get started. I've got a crowded screen here, pardon me. All right, so here's a guide for the presentation today. First off, just an overview of high quality instructional materials in OER at TEA. Then a little bit of a deep dive into the Amplify Texas Elementary Literacy Program, contacts and resources for you guys, and Q&A. So how do we define HQIM? Natalie mentioned a couple of those criteria. And so just to get a little bit more granular, we define high quality instructional materials by the criteria listed here in full. And to summarize, HQIM ensure full coverage of TEKS. They're aligned to evidence-based best practices. And you may be familiar with the RLA and math RBs, for example. Those are the evidence-based practices that the Texas Open Education Resources are founded upon. They also, HQIM also supports all learners, enables frequent progress monitoring, and includes implementation supports. So the support for HQIM is grounded in the findings of a 2018 study from the New Teacher Project, also TNTP, as published in the Opportunity Myth. That's something that you also may be familiar with. While the students succeeded in this, while the students in the study succeeded on more than 2/3 of assignments. They only demonstrated success against the grade level standards 17% of the time on those exact same assignments. The gap exists because so few assignments actually gave students a chance to demonstrate grade level mastery. What the study found is that students spent more than 500 hours per school year on assignments that weren't appropriate for their grade and with instruction that didn't ask enough of them. They estimated that the equivalent was 6 months of wasted class time in these core subjects. So this really underpins why there is so much support and why you're hearing so much about HQIM. So how is OER seeking to address these challenges? As I said, the TNTP study, but also others, reveal a gap in the quality of instructional materials that TEA's OER division seeks to address. One of the most common challenges is research showing that 83% of assignments are below grade level. And so our goal is to ensure that students have access to grade level texts and assignments every day for all students, that rigorous engagement piece. So we also know that many of the materials that cover the TEKS are not necessarily aligned with research on how kids learn in the, for the different content areas. So all of the OER products, not only are they TEKS aligned, but they are designed based on research that does support how kids learn. And we know also that many districts purchase copyrighted materials that cannot be customized for local control. So our OER solution is that districts and charters can download and edit all OER products to customize for your local context. Many districts also do not provide comprehensive resources, and often teachers are left to find their own or create materials. How many times have you heard people talking about teacher pay teachers trying to find resources to put together? So TEA's OER includes comprehensive resources that provide teachers with everything that they need to cover 100% of the TEKS. Another challenge is that most instructional materials don't have a path for continuous improvement based on Texas educator input. So with the OER materials, we collect Texas educator feedback through focus groups to inform the product and change with each edition. So this is our kind of answer to the challenges. And so, as Natalie mentioned, TEA provides high quality instructional materials as an option for districts and charters. There are 2 scopes of these materials that we provide. There are full subject materials and also supplemental materials. Full subject materials are those full sets of materials that are designed to provide the teacher with everything needed to cover 100% of the TEKS in a grade level, including scope and sequence, daily lesson plans, and student materials. Supplemental materials are not designed to cover 100% of the TEKS, but they're designed to complement, enrich, and/or extend supports in a particular subject and/or grade band. Of these 2 scopes, there are 2 types of licenses. One is the Texas Open Education Resources, which is our focus today, and then temporary state license resource today. So not only are we focusing on the open education resources, but we are focusing on the full subject materials covered by the Texas Open Education Resources license. So to get even more granular about how OER is defined, and this is defined in statute, and they are defined in statute as teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain or that have been released under an intellectual property license that allows for the free use, reuse, modification, and sharing with others, including full courses, course materials, modules, textbooks, streaming videos, tests, software, and any other tools, materials, or techniques used to support access to knowledge. So that's OER writ large. In terms of Texas open education resources, these are optional OER developed specifically for K-12 school systems in Texas. And so Texas open education resources, we define that as state-developed materials where the underlying intellectual property is either owned by the state of Texas or it can be freely used and modified by the state in perpetuity. These materials are made freely available forever in digital form to Texas school districts and of course charters and educators in general to use or modify as they see fit. Now they can be printed to ensure students have access to paper instructional materials as well. In the future, TEA plans to ensure students have access to printed versions at cost. Finally, the materials are updated, as we mentioned before, to improve their quality with new versions over time based on feedback from teachers and parents. School districts and charter schools retain the responsibility under state law to ensure TEKs are covered in ways deemed most appropriate by the local school system. Prior to publication, materials do go through a rigorous third-party review based on an approved rubric. Review criteria include TEKS alignment, support for all learners, including students with disabilities, progress monitoring, implementation supports, age appropriateness, and more. You'll recognize some of those things from the HQIM criteria. The materials are also subject to focus groups of Texas educators. For most OER materials, TEA operates a continuous improvement process to update the content of the instructional materials to ensure that they are of the highest quality based on feedback from districts, teachers, and parents. And then just like any publisher in Texas, TEA's HQIM will go before the State Board of Education for approval in the new instructional materials review and adoption process. Sorry, that was a lot. Now, again, getting a little bit more detailed, kind of narrowing in on the materials. Again, talking about how we meet the requirements for high quality instructional materials. And again, our optional Tier 1 materials cover 100% of the TEKs and the ELPs, and they do cover an entire year of instruction. Again, we're focused on those full materials OER. And they are designed with and aligned to evidence-based practices in the relevant content areas. So let's dig into each of these major components that you see here on the screen. Each core subject material includes a variety of program and course level guidance. That would include things like program guides, course overviews, and assessment guides. The program guides would provide an overview of the philosophy and instructional approach, description of the product components, how they align to the curricular vision. Course overviews summarize student learning goals, and the assessment guide describes the program's approach to assessment, including unit assessments and embedded formative assessments. The scope and sequence documents provide that at-a-glance pacing information and overview about how the TEKs and ELPs are addressed. Different options are going to be built in for flexibility for in-district calendars, such as additional days school year or ADSI. The unit plans and assessments map out the learning journey and how student mastery will be measured. Mid and end of unit assessments are designed with STAR redesign in mind so that students will be set up for success. Daily lesson plans and formative assessments are the nuts and bolts of the program. Embedded teacher supports during instruction help educators address the needs of all learners, and analysis of student responses to formative assessment help teachers support students with just-in-time interventions. Finally, there are content-specific resources that are the content-based best practice supports for teachers and learners, such as student-facing workbooks, instructional videos, teacher presentation materials, and vocabulary cards. These are the OER products that are available right now. There are 2 full subject OER options available. They include the Eureka Math TEKS edition and Amplify Texas Elementary Literacy Program. Both of these are the COVID emergency release editions. And we are going to jump in just a little bit into Amplify. But one thing to note is that both products were trans-adapted into Spanish to ensure an authentic experience for emerging bilingual students. The digital materials are free for use, reuse, or modification, like as we mentioned, by any Texan, and the full content of the materials are available online for transparent review. We will demonstrate how to access the RLA product later. And as mentioned, these open education resources are freely available, but they are not necessarily cost-free because there is a cost for printing. That's really the only cost, or manipulative kits or trade books that you might not have. So you can see in the additional cost column there on the right-hand side. And so this graphic illustrates how the RLA materials leveraged research on reading and the research that resulted in the STAR redesign to shift the mindset around instructional material design. The blue boxes represent non-alignment with the latest research, and the orange boxes represent research-based design. Take a moment to just compare the characteristics of each set and ask yourself, which characteristics of the 2 columns describe the RLA materials in your current context? I'll pause for a few seconds. So I'll highlight some of these shifts. The first shift is from standalone unit design to a coherent unit design, where lessons are strategically designed and sequenced to build student knowledge over time. For the second shift, some context is probably helpful. You may be familiar with the classic baseball study, where researchers tested the reading comprehension of readers at different skill levels. The reading passage was a detailed description of a play in baseball. The research studies show that high reading ability did not correlate with high comprehension scores if subject knowledge was low. However, low reading ability did correlate with high comprehension scores if subject knowledge was high. In other words, kids that knew a lot about baseball scored well on reading comprehension, no matter their skill level. So based on research, the second shift suggests moving instruction from isolated skills only English instruction to a skills embedded knowledge-based approach, which allows students of all skill levels to succeed in reading comprehension as they continue to build their skills. Now, the last 3 design shifts are directly aligned with the components of the STAR redesign. So you see that there's cross-curricular content leveraged to build background knowledge, all students needing and having access to grade level complex text during Tier 1 instruction, and students' written responses being grounded in evidence from literary and informational texts. So alignment to the components of the STAR redesign is also a central part of the OER design process. Formative assessments are also being ingested into TFAR. If you aren't familiar with TFAR, TFAR is the Texas Formative Assessment Resource free online platform that increases student competence with the STAR assessment platform and increases student proficiency with STAR accessibility tools and resources, and increases student comfort with online accommodations. So again, this is a lot of information, but this really shows you the shift and the research base of the Texas OER materials. Now, I mentioned the baseball study. Here's a graphical representation of that data so that can kind of put a picture to the words. And notice that large gap between the blue set of bars, which represent that high knowledge, and then the red set of bars, which indicate low knowledge. as compared to those smaller gaps between high and low reading ability within the blue and red sets. Again, this is a founding research base that helped produce that shift. Now, just really quickly, again, the math materials took a similar approach. And here you can see how this graphic illustrates a similar shift between the blue that represents materials that are not aligned with the research to the yellow that represents materials that are designed based on research and the basis of our math OER material. Okay, gonna pause for a few minutes here to take any questions that you have so far before we dive into the RLA product. And do we have any questions in the chat?
Nope, right now it's pretty quiet. Folks, remember, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A function and we will make sure that they get addressed. So I think you all are good to keep going.
Okay. Fantastic. All right, thanks.
Thank you. So now we're going to switch gears and take a closer look at the Amplify Texas Elementary Literacy Program, or Amplify Texas ELP, just for a short reference. And we'll also take a look at the Amplify Texas Lectoescritura in Español. And before we get into our website together, I would like to overview the guiding principles of the program. I would like to begin with RLA, research-based instructional strategies, RBs. These strategies represent the principles that guide the development and the continuous improvement of the reading language arts product for Texas. So the RBs, or research-based instructional strategies, are a collection of effective teaching practices developed by the Texas Education Agency to improve the quality of education in Texas. These strategies aim to enhance the way students learn in grades K through 12. So the RBs not only highlight common misconceptions in education, but also promote new ways of teaching, and is based on research. So these practices should be used in classrooms regardless of the teaching materials used. Today, we will be making connections with the components of each strand of the RBs and the pedagogy behind the curriculum design of Amplify Texas ELP and Amplify Texas Lectoescritura in Español. Amplify Texas Elementary Literacy Program and Amplify Texas Lectoescritura en Español are developed using the frameworks of both the Simple View of Reading and Scarborough's Reading Group. Amplify Texas is guided by an extensive research on the science of reading, which is a compilation of research-based best practices for literacy instruction. So let's take a moment to look at the Simple View of Reading. And this may be something you're familiar with, but our focus will be on how it relates to Amplify Texas. The Simple View of Reading describes reading as the combination of the ability to decode, actually sound out and read the words on a page, and comprehends or understand what those words mean. So in order to avoid cognitive overload for our younger students, the Amplify Texas Skills strand is designed to teach students to decode, while the knowledge strand builds students' comprehension. So you can learn more about the two-strand approach in the appendix of Unit 1 Teacher Guide, which I will help you to locate in a few more minutes. So now we're going to see the simple view of reading, also represented by the reading rope, which you may already be familiar with as well. So this graphic represents the idea that to be a successful reader, students need to have word recognition to actually read the text and have the background knowledge necessary to make meaning of what they are reading. So the strands of this rope represent the components that go into word recognition and comprehension. So all of which are taught through Amplify Texas ELP and Amplify Texas Lectoescritura en Español. So now that we know that the science of reading tells us that in order for students to get optimal results from our leaders instruction, which is the language comprehension and word recognition, must be working hand in hand. In other words, the recognition of sounds, letters, and words integrated with knowledge, vocabulary, sentences, connections, and gist are the makings of the most impactful reading instruction for students. So through this integration of language comprehension and word recognition strands, the program is designed to produce increasingly automatic and strategic for students' performance. So through research-based pedagogy, teachers will encourage students to build connections and context and listen and understand, while emphasizing interactivity and assessing what is important. So research on the science of reading has informed the instructional approaches to literacy instruction in grades K2 and grades 3 through 5 in Amplify Texas ELP and in Amplify Texas Lectoescritura en Español. Amplify Texas ELP and Amplify Texas Lectoescritura en Español, the curriculum is a little bit different depending on the grade level. And for example, in this page, we can see that in grades K2, the program is organized in two strands, skills and knowledge. So the skills strand develops word recognition through explicit and systematic foundational skills instruction in phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics, grammar, and writing. The knowledge strand develops language comprehension by engaging students in interactive read-alouds, which build both the background knowledge and the vocabulary. When we look at the grades 3 and 5, the program is integrated. Students practice reading and writing, speaking and listening, grammar and morphology skills through the lessons within a unit, while they're building their background knowledge through the text. So let's look at the instructional minutes for each program. And the Texas ELR skills lessons are planned for 60 minutes, and in the ESLAR habilidades y lectura, habilidades y destrezas lessons are planned only for 40 minutes of instruction. The difference between the both programs is that in Spanish, the language is more transparent, and Spanish language facilitates that students decoding, so we spend less time in habilidades y destrezas. In the knowledge strand or conocimiento in Spanish, lessons are planned for 60 minutes of instruction. And since there is like parity, or they're very similar in content, so there's no need for you to teach both languages if you're offering a bilingual English-Spanish program. However, in few instances, you will need some extra instructional minutes to teach portions that are different between both programs. For the instructional minutes for grades 3 to 5, you can see on the screen that grade 3 takes 120 minutes for the integrated resources. And in grades 4 and 5, it will take 90 minutes. The program will take 90 minutes in for the integrated materials. Now, if we look at this chart here, the Amplify Texas knowledge units are strategically sequenced to build word and world knowledge over the course of the years and across multiple years. So this chart shows all the units taught grades K through 5, and you can see how knowledge builds upon itself within grades and across grade levels. So as you can see, Amplify Texas ELP systematically builds background knowledge so that students can better comprehend texts that they encounter. In the program designed, the knowledge strand is centered on read-alouds that are intentionally sequenced to build content knowledge and vocabulary across grades K-5. In specific, some knowledge domains are around literature, history, science, and the arts. So this sequence is intentional in order to build knowledge over time. The Amplify Texas ELP and Amplify Texas Lectoescritura en Español teach literacy skills through social studies and science topics. But Amplify Texas should not replace your science or your social studies blocks, since the purpose is to increase background knowledge, where science and social studies are to teach students to think and analyze in a specific way. Okay. So now let's hear from Crowley ISD, who implemented the Amplify Texas Elementary Literacy Program this past year. So we're going to watch the video.
We do not have sound on the video. Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. Let me try again. I had to stop sharing and reshare. Is the video, but the video is playing, correct?
The video is playing. I think it was just because you were muted.
Oh, fantastic.
Let's try it.
Thank you.
We are in our first year of implementation for Amplify Texas. It has been a game changer. It really began with our why. Our mission says excellence in education for all students. If we say we are here for all children, does all mean all? And if so, is that represented here? Are we okay with the results that we have?
The teachers felt like our students were not at the level that they needed to be.
We wanted to adopt a curriculum that was going to be something that would level the playing field for all of our students. We knew to meet that part of all students, we wanted to explore and discover what is out there. What is Amplify all about? We were kind of thrown in, having no idea even what Amplify was when we first started.
It just seemed like it was going to be so overwhelming, and the content was sit and get.
My students would sit on the rug and they'd be like, Joe, this is so long.
But as it turns out, they were able to accept that and internalize so much content
And oh my gosh, on day 3, they were running into my classroom, grabbing their readers, begging to not close them. They wanted to take them home. And these are 9, 10-year-old kids who just had a 2-month summer break. Every unit just completely engaged these kids.
They didn't want to stop a lesson. They wanted to, can we continue Shakespeare Midsummer Night's Dream? They wanted to go home and read their parts. I had a couple students who learned their parts.
My kids really loved it and found it very intriguing.
Seeing that these kids can learn this in 1st grade and take away things about American Revolutionary War and westward expansion and learning about the systems in the human body.
They're gonna be ready. The program itself gave the teachers a lot of buy-in because they saw the change, not only with the curriculum, they saw it with their students.
Amplify Texas has really been the mindset shift. He is really looking at a brand new curriculum. It's just amazing how it's impacted their deep knowledge. It's not just small stories, but they have a deep critical thinking about it, and their writing shows it.
Our instructional coaches have really supported and helped us implement this because we were learning it together. And there's just some feeling of camaraderie whenever you're going into something new together.
With coaching,
Okay, so we're going to stop the video there and go back into the presentation. And you can, you heard from them that there was quite a bit of a shift and what that shift entailed. But like they were saying, like from day 3, the kids were engaged. So there's definitely a shift involved. There is a link to this video that is going to be included in the material so that you can watch the entire video. And if you're interested, there's also a link to a video about implementing the Eureka Math product as well. So we will continue with our program.
So we will take a look at the Amplify website. So you have the information on the screen. The website learning.amplify.com, and you will see a screen like this where you will have to select login with Amplify, enter your username, and enter the password.
Okay, and I'm going to play along with you guys, and I might have to unshare and reshare. So would you guys let me know if did it switch to the login screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So if you guys want to follow along, I did put in the chat the username and the password that you're going to use once you hit login with Amplify. And so I'll just kind of pause a little bit here, and if you guys are following along, that should give you some time to put to copy and paste from the chat into the website.
Probably when you log in, it may not take you to this page, or it may take you to another page, and then you will have to switch to Amplify Texas Elementary Literacy Program. So you can see that it's the last link. Thank you. The first screen that you will see is the grade levels. So here is where you have the choice to select the grade level that you need to explore. So this time we're going to explore kindergarten. I think, yes, thank you if you go back. This introduction page here, you can find the a little bit more of the research about the science of reading, how to get started, and what is the Amplify Reading Texas K-2. From this page, we have two tabs at the top of the screen. One reads daily instruction and the other one says program resources. So we will start with program resources. Here you will be able to see some of the professional learning, foundations, webinars, unit internalization videos, or assessment guidance. You can scroll down on the page, or you can also read the menu on your right. And on this page, you can also use the toggle button to go from English to Spanish, the English to Spanish materials. And the website is organized in the same way, and it has the same structure, so you can navigate easily between both languages. Then we can go to the daily instruction. In this tab is where we are going to find the two different strands for K1 and 2, which is skills and knowledge. Here we will find the units, and we will explore today unit skills, unit 8. So you can see, diving deeper, the materials that you can find in this section, which is your teacher guide, the activity book, your readers, and digital components. So you have a few options of your readers, like you have the PDF to download, and then you have a big book, also a PDF to download. You also have a menu on below skills under 8, where you can easily switch to a different unit, and then you will find the subsections too, as the materials or poetry here. Okay. We can go back and explore also a upper grade. So to change or switch grade levels, just click or hit kindergarten again. It will take you back to the menu that you saw at the beginning of the screen or the presentation. So we can choose now grade 4. Now you will see that the product is integrated, so we're not going to see skills or knowledge anymore. We're just going to see the units. If we click in a unit, let's try unit 8, energy. We will dive deep and find the materials. We will find the teacher guide. We will find the activity book, image cards, or readers information. You can scroll down to find more resources, or you can either go to the menu on your left side on your screen, and that will take you to the section that you need. Again, you can toggle the language here from English, or switch from English to Spanish, so you will find your Spanish resources and Spanish materials here. Okay. You can explore the on your own, so we would like only to remind you classes, please, in this account, just because it is a demo account. And we're gonna go back to our presentation so we can take more questions.
And before we open the session up for any questions that you might have for our second part, we wanted to wrap it up a little bit with how you can contact us for more information. And if you have further questions after this session about OER, it's not like this is your only opportunity. But you can contact us at the email address provided or visit the OER website. I can put those in the chat. The materials that come after this presentation, these links should be hot links so that you have the easy accessibility to the videos that I mentioned. So you could watch the entire video there, or also watch the math implementation video from a district. Both of these districts have implemented these OER products this past year, so it's very timely information. Our website has a bunch of information, background information. We kind of shared just a little bit of that with you today. And then, as we mentioned, and as Elena just gave you a tour of, you have digital access to the OER products. And this is a different avenue into the materials, which is directly from our website. For math access, you can request access through the Great Minds Eureka Mathtiques Edition site. You will be able to get free access, as you know, especially if you want to look at it and take a look at it before, you know, diving in. At this point, I think we are ready for a Q&A part 2. So with the remainder of our time, we'd like to open it up for questions if we have any. I did just share the contact information, probably the most pertinent contact information in the chat, so that you have it right away. Other than that, please let us know what we can answer for you or other resources.
We have an attendee who's saying that they're getting an error message after using the username and password. I don't know if that's something that we can troubleshoot.
So I guess my question would be, were you able to cut and paste from the chat successfully, or was it retyped? That would be the first thing, is just to double check. I'm not sure exactly why that would be. Now, the other thing we could do, we could certainly troubleshoot offline and make sure that we can get everybody in who wants to get in. And then, you know, to share a screen and then be able to really troubleshoot one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so, Natalie, if that's the case, would that person be willing to share their contact information, and then we can contact them?
Yeah, we're having a couple of folks who are getting the error. So if they want to just, you are welcome to email the inbox that was shared for OER in the chat. If you just have us on speed dial and you want to, as so to speak, and you want to just email the charter application inbox, then we will be in touch with the OER team to make sure that we figure out the issue there, and that we get some type of demo for you to review.
Sorry about that. It's super frustrating.
Yeah, we will. It's okay. These kinds of things happen. We will get to the bottom of it and see what we can share out and follow up communications. Any other questions? We have a few minutes left about the materials that were presented, or accessing them or reviewing them, especially in the context of the application requirements.
One thing I think let's see, might be able to just temporarily, Right, and if we go back to that contact, Elena, I think you might have the deck not in share mode, but if we go back to the contact information, could you share the link here, this direct access link?
Yes.
And because that way, at least, you know, immediately you'd be able, it's not going to be the lovely, pretty website that Elena was able to tour you through, but that will get you into all of the materials and units, and so that you can actually get your hands on a sample unit in detail sooner than later. And definitely try, is that, I don't know if that's live, Elena, I don't think it,
No, it's not. Let me,
okay. You might have to follow and
yes, I'm following the link.
while we're waiting for any other possible questions, we can.
And
Great.
it also only gives me the option to share with, yes, with host. So if you can help me to forward.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. I will repost it right now into the chat.
Okay, and then I'd be curious, just, I mean, to make sure that people can have access to that, especially the folks that were trying to get access where the login information wasn't working.
We do have some attendees who are reporting that they are able to access it. So I think our team will also troubleshoot it on our end. See if we can provide some guidance there as well. Okay. All right, we are coming close to time. I think everybody is most engaged in wanting to play with the materials and interact with them in the event that they decide to use them as part of their proposals, which is great. That's, you know, that's why we're here.
Absolutely. And again, that mailbox is the best way to contact the Open Education Resources team. That way, depending on what your question is, it can be funneled to the most appropriate person so that your question can be addressed really quickly. And so anything else? But we are super excited that you guys tuned in today. Thank you so much for your attention today. And we are here if you do have questions in the future, and happy to help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for donating your time and talking through this as content area experts. This has really been a lot of great information, not just in the why, the how and the why for HQIM, but I think definitely the more like user-friendly version of talking through it, especially for our prospective applicants who haven't interacted with the OER up until this point. So thank you so much for that overview and tutorial. And again, folks, as always, we will share these resources and get them posted to the website, the recording and the slide decks as soon as we can. There's a little bit of a backlog in the comms. And so we're kind of at the mercy of the process. But we'll also be sending weekly update emails here pretty soon, where we can also highlight these resources as they become available as well. And in the meantime, should you have questions about OER specifically, please reach out to the inbox as Elisa shared. They have a great process for channeling those questions to the appropriate personnel. And we will see you perhaps again next week at 3:30 for our next support seminar. And if you have not registered already, please make sure that you do so from the Charter School applicants webpage. Thanks everyone for your time.